They ruled through fear, steel, and fire. Yet today, most people barely remember their name. To their enemies, the Assyrians were not conquerors. They were terror, given the name. What they built next would terrify the ancient world for centuries. Stay with me, because this story goes far beyond war. The Assyrians rose in Mesopotamia, a land shaped by rivers, drought, and endless conflict. Their story began in Ashur, a city that was both home and sacred ground. In Assyria, kings did not command the gods commanded kings. Above all stood Ashur, god of war, order, and absolute rule. Every Assyrian king ruled with one belief: his power was divine and unquestionable. From childhood, Assyrians were prepared for war, body, mind, and spirit. While rivals still fought with bronze, Assyria mastered iron. Fear was not a consequence of Assyrian warfare. It was the strategy. They carved their victories into stone, so no one would forget. And these images traveled faster than any army. But the Assyrians were more than destroyers. They built vast cities, canals, and roads that reshaped the land. Everything was recorded: grain, land, labor, and loyalty. An empire built on fear could never appear weak. Rebellion waited beyond every border. Peace was temporary. War was constant. At its peak, Assyria ruled lands from Egypt to Persia. Every victory demanded blood and silence. But power stretched too far always begins to crack. The empire had grown larger than control itself. The fear once used against enemies slowly turned inward. Beyond Assyria's borders, others were watching and waiting. For a moment, the empire still stood unchallenged. History itself seemed to pause, because no empire, not even this one, escapes the end. To understand how Assyria rose, we must step into how its people lived. Beyond the armies and monuments, millions lived ordinary lives under Assyrian rule. Daily life was structured, monitored, and deeply connected to the state. Most Assyrians lived in simple homes made of mud brick, built for heat, dust, and survival. Family was the core of Assyrian life. Work, faith, and identity all began there. Men, women, and children each had defined roles. Order was expected, not negotiated. Their diet was simple but sustaining: bread, dates, vegetables, and beer. Beer was safer than water, and bread was life itself. Clothing revealed status. Fabric, color, and jewelry spoke silently. Even appearance was controlled. Beards, hair, and posture reflected discipline. Privacy was rare. Authority was always nearby. Religion was not separate from life. It shaped every decision. The Assyrians searched constantly for signs from the gods. Disasters were never random. They were messages. Only a few learned to read and write. Knowledge itself demonstrates power. Through clay tablets, the empire recorded its will. Law was strict, and punishment was public. Obedience was not loyalty, it was survival. The empire pressed down on every household, every day. Yet order brought stability, and stability brought prosperity. Assyria functioned like a machine: precise, disciplined, relentless. Many were proud to belong to the most powerful empire on earth. But this same system carried the seeds of collapse, and no one inside could stop it. Control demanded constant force, and force creates resistance. Even under pressure, life continued. Births, work, rituals, meals. Children grew up knowing no world beyond the empire. Faith helped people accept what could not be changed. But beneath stability, silence grew heavy. And soon, silence would break. The Assyrian world stood prepared, organized, armed, and restless. What began as control would soon become conquest. Control was no longer enough. Assyria began to expand. War was not chaos to the Assyrians, it was policy. Year after year, their armies marched without pause. They perfected siege warfare long before others dared. Walls that once symbolized safety became traps. The goal was not just victory, it was terror. And fear worked better than any army. Entire populations were uprooted and scattered across the empire. This was not cruelty without reason. It was calculated domination. Conquered peoples were absorbed, reorganized, and exploited. Roads connected distant provinces to the Assyrian heartland. Orders traveled fast, faster than rebellion could rise. No rival power could match Assyria's speed or brutality. Gold, silver, livestock, and labor poured into Assyrian cities. Conquest funded cities unlike anything the world had seen. This was the peak. Assyria stood at the center of the known world. From afar, provinces obeyed, not from loyalty, but fear. But power at this scale always comes at a cost. The empire stretched itself thinner with every conquest. Over time, enemies adapted and learned Assyrian methods. Revolts began to flare across distant provinces. Each rebellion was crushed, but never forgotten. The message was clear. Resistance meant destruction. To many, this was Assyria's golden age. But beneath the gold, the structure was weakening. Endless war drained even the strongest heartland. Control remained. But certainty did not. And now, everything depended on those who ruled. The empire's fate rested in the hands of its kings. To understand Assyria's rise and its fall, we must meet them. Empires do not act alone. They move through people. In Assyria, the king was not just a ruler. He was divine authority on earth. Ashurnasirpal II reshaped Assyria through terror and spectacle. He believed fear would preserve the empire long after his death. Shalmaneser III expanded Assyria through relentless campaigns. His reign was defined by constant warfare, victory without rest. But endless war breeds exhaustion, not loyalty. Tiglath-Pileser III transformed Assyria into a true imperial machine. He replaced chaos with systems, provinces, governors, and control. Efficiency made the empire stronger and more fragile. Sargon II sought glory through rebuilding and conquest. He built an entire capital to immortalize his reign. But monuments cannot protect against fate. Sennacherib ruled with ambition, intelligence, and relentless force. He reshaped cities with canals, walls, and unmatched engineering. His armies reached as far as Jerusalem, but not all victories are complete. Even the strongest kings encounter limits they cannot break. Esarhaddon rebuilt what war had damaged. Under his rule, Assyria conquered Egypt itself. But victory across continents stretched the empire dangerously thin. Ashurbanipal was both warrior and scholar. He gathered knowledge from across the world. For the first time, history was intentionally preserved. Yet even scholars could be ruthless. Under Ashurbanipal, the empire appeared unbreakable. But beneath the surface, old cracks widened. After his death, unity collapsed. Rival claimants fought for control. Assyria's enemies sensed weakness. The fall had already begun. What followed was not a single defeat, but a perfect storm. Former enemies found common cause against Assyria. Babylon and the Medes struck together with patience and precision. In 612 BCE, Nineveh, the heart of Assyria, was surrounded. Even the greatest walls eventually fall. The city burned and then went silent. In a matter of years, an empire, centuries in the making, was gone. There was no heroic final stand, only collapse. New powers rose, while Assyria faded into memory. For over 2,000 years, Assyria remained buried beneath the earth. Contrary to myth, Assyrians were among the greatest engineers of the ancient world. They built one of history's first true road networks. Assyrian kings openly recorded their own brutality. Mass deportations were used to prevent rebellion, not to erase cultures. Assyria maintained one of the first professional standing armies. Their intelligence networks warned kings of rebellion before it began. Assyrian queens sometimes ruled as regents with real power. Ashurbanipal's library preserved myths that would otherwise be lost forever. The Epic of Gilgamesh survived because Assyrians copied it. Despite their reputation, Assyrians valued art, music, and poetry. Their empire collapsed faster than it rose. Fear built their empire, but fear could not save it. Yet their ideas shaped empires that came after. Today, Assyria survives through memory, stone, and story. This story does not belong to one land. It belongs to us all. Because understanding the past helps us understand ourselves. Empires fall, but human stories endure. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. Your presence keeps this journey alive, one story at a time. You deserve the truth behind history. Thank you for being here.